Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is the third Thursday of the month, so I hope that you are ready to get cracking on Christmas. This is a series organized by Jenn Shurkus, and it's all about inspiring each other, getting our Christmas cards going throughout the year instead of having a Christmas issue at the end of the year, having not enough Christmas cards to share, to send out. Now, although I'm participating here, I really need to get cracking aside of every third Thursday, but at least I will have 12 cards already prepped if I can continue doing this. So that's a good idea. Aside from that, I hope that I can really inspire you today to try clean and simple Christmas cards. And if you normally make those incredible scene cards, I get it, it's gorgeous. I'm blown away every time by all of the creations that I see online. I truly am. But in case at the end of the year you might be stuck and you don't have enough cards, and you don't have an idea for a scene, or you don't have the time for a scene, maybe you will think of me, and maybe you will remember that there is a way to feature just one image, just color one, let it shine on your card and have a gorgeous card prepped. That's also a way to make really quick cards. Not that I really handle it like that, but it definitely can help in periods where you don't have enough time. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that today I'm using Polychromos pencils, which is something that I do not recommend if you need a quick card, except when that's the medium that you're using all the time. But for me personally, it goes way quicker if I just use my markers and color this one image in. So if I would recreate this card because I have a lack of time, then I would definitely use my markers. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that I am featuring Kebin the penguin from Paperie Ink. It's an adorable stamp set filled with penguins. Now, if you're like me and you don't want to repeat yourself every time, then there is definitely this option to create this same card but just use every time another penguin. It would be gorgeous, I think, to have just a series of cards with these different penguins on. I also know that some of us sell their cards, and well, I do not, because my parents always take, well, all of them. So I don't really am selling anything particular or so. But if there are like people who would ask you to make like a mini card series stuff, like a box with sort of similar but each time different cards, and this is definitely a way to do that. Just use every time another image from the stamp set that you like. Okay, so coloring with Polychromos pencils. It's something that I don't do often. Why? Because I'm not familiar with it, but I used it last month, and well, I got so many gorgeous reactions from you all, and also some people who asked me to do it more often. So I thought, well, maybe I can just incorporate it in at least one Get Cracking on Christmas, in the hope that I can this way help you. It's not as easy as with Copics to show the caps of the pencils. I cannot do that really, but I have listed the several pencils that I used on my blog post. I also think that currently, whenever I'm doing coloring with pencils, it will be a clean and simple card, so the pencils will be quite limited. Another thing that I wanted to maybe mention about this is also that, well, I bought the whole box. It was an investment. I thought I'm going to do this because there are some great cards out there that are so inspiring, and the moment you see artists use pencils, you think, oh my god, that's crazy, I want to do that as well. So I bought the whole box. You know me, I need the whole collection, and I need storage. So for me, it was the logical way to really save up for the whole box. This way I had the box for the organization as well as all of the pencils for my I need everything thingy. But then I used it and it just took me so much time that I put them aside. So that was unfortunate. And then I'm really glad I took them again last month. It went easier than before. Maybe it's because I also am starting to know more how I like coloring with markers, and I'm using the same idea. With pencil, it is all about layering, and I must admit that I'm not really layering a ton at this point, so I think that these images and these cards that I'm making currently with pencils could be way more impressive if I would have a bit more patience even. But at this time, I'm already really glad with how it turned out. So I'm glad that I'm sharing it with you. But as you can see, I'm also coloring from darkest to lightest. What I must admit is that I suggest not adding too much pressure from the start. Your first layer really soft, adding the pencils. This way you can add more layers on top, but if you really go hard on there, the paper is getting smoother and then it will not catch the additional coloring, or that's what I experience at least. So I'm not an expert, but I'm sort of trying to keep in mind how I color with Copics, how I am adding shadows with Copics. Also, I'm using again the Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, which is currently what I prefer for coloring with pencils, also because I keep it clean and simple, and if you have a white panel it can be popping, that's for sure, but it can also be really empty. This is also empty, but it's with the other color, I don't know what it is, but it gives something extra. So therefore I tend to currently use Neenah Desert Storm from Crafter's Companion, and it works for me. So that's important. I also bought a lot of papers for coloring with pencils when I started with the pencils. And I also have a few blog posts about it. I don't know exactly when they were dated, but I wrote about them, how they felt. I didn't film everything. No, I did not. That was unfortunate. But I wrote about them, what my experience was. And although some people say that a certain paper works for them, it's not necessarily the case for you. So yeah, it can still be different for you. So that I just want to mention. Because I also bought the paper, and I don't recall it, but everyone was like, oh, this paper is really great for coloring with pencils, and it just wasn't working for me. It might be the lack of technique, it might be, or the lack of patience at that time, but yeah, I didn't like the paper. So definitely try things out. If you know someone that is coloring with pencil that lives nearby, ask around if they have just a piece of scrap paper for you, so that you can test it out. That would be really handy. So I colored the main image and then I thought, well, maybe you can try to add a bit of shadowing. So I did that. I tried to add it on the right side, and I started first with a really light gray marker, and once I had sort of an idea how to tackle it, I took a darker marker. And then, like I do sometimes with the Copic markers that I saw done by Amy Jung, I sort of left just a tiny space in between my penguin and my darker shadow. And I don't know if that's an added bonus, but it kind of works for me, so I think it's definitely something that I will keep on doing. You don't need to add a shadow. I think the image on its own was already cute and definitely enough, but you can always add if you want to. So here, even going darker than before, and then I will just blend it out again with those other color pencils. But truly, I don't know if this is a technique or not. Again, I'm not an expert, but I can only show you how I did it, and maybe you can take on a few pointers if you think I'm right somewhere, and just have fun with your creation. So at a certain moment you have to say that it isn't enough, but this shadow really got me doubting about whether it was good to add it, whether it looked like a shadow or not. But the more that I look at it, the more that I'm happy with the addition. So that's great. And so once I did the image, it was time to choose the sentiment. And I I contemplated quite a long time, and then I took this sentiment ho 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 from Mama Elephant. It's from the Scripty Xmas, and I'm going to white heat emboss it on top of this panel. And then once I did that, I thought you can stop here. You definitely can, but I decided to just add a bit more even, just after heat setting my sentiments. And in case you were wondering, before I add my embossing ink, I use an anti-static powder tool. The powder in it is sort of a baby powder or baking soda that also helps, and there will be other powders as well that help. You don't necessarily need the tool. There is also a powder bag that you can use, or you can just add yourself the baby powder on top of your card base, brush it all over and use it like that. It will help to prevent the embossing powder to get stuck everywhere where you don't need it. But in case it does, you can always use a paintbrush, a craft knife, depending on the area that you need to remove the excess embossing powder, to just make sure that your sentiment or your image that you want to emboss is crisp. Now, for behind my panel that I colored my image on, I am using Cranberry cardstock from Concord in 9th. And I just added the whole paper on top of it and then trimmed off the excess. This way I'm sure that it is completely filling up my card base. And then I decided to add on the back of my panel here some foam, just some craft foam instead of foam tape. And then I will just add some more adhesive to be able to add this panel on top of my card base. Now, of course, my adhesive roller almost didn't have any adhesive anymore, so just adding it as straight as possible. It's not centered completely, but it is straight, so that's already handy. And then I decided, as I said, to add a bit more. I'm just adding a few dots, a few stars all around the penguin. Why? Because, well, I just thought it was a nice detail. Since I used the white embossing powder, and it is Noline coloring, I thought, well, maybe this way I have a bit more white all around and I have my card a bit more filled. Again, it's not necessary. I definitely think if I would recreate this card on a white panel with markers or anything like that, I would not add the white jelly roll pen, of course. But on this paper, it's quite nice. It shows up really pretty, and yeah. And I also added a dot to the eye to just have it sparkle a bit, and that's my card. A clean and simple Christmas card for the current Get Cracking on Christmas series. I hope that you like this card, that the pencils or just the card design can help you in the future. Don't forget to check out my blog post if you want to visit the color combinations that I used here. I want to thank you all for stopping by and taking the time. Again, this is part of the Get Cracking on Christmas. I hope to be able to have inspired you today and that you get cracking as well. And I want to wish you all an incredible day. Bye!